Embracing Your Perinatal Body. And I am Kate. Let's see. There we go. Who am I? So I am mom of four, five if you include Drifty Dog, who's back here sleeping on the couch. I have two biological babies, and they're in this picture here with me. And I have two bonus daughters who I have, they've been in my life since they were 4 and 3. And I, of course, adore them. Um, I am a postpartum anxiety, depression, rage survivor, as well as a traumatic birth survivor. Currently, right now with PSI, I am a peer mentor volunteer. So I work with peers that have gone along similar journeys as I have, and I consider myself healed. And so it's a pleasure to work with birthing parents that are dealing with similar situations. I am also recently, as of December last year, I am regional manager in the Northeast for PSI's The Climb, which is the PSI's big awareness and fundraising event that's held across the country and in Canada, internationally. I'm also a certified personal trainer with a specialty in perinatal movement and wellness. And am a former owner of Mom Led of Syracuse, which was the Mommy and Me fitness program. I am also a Swiftie, and I was looking it up. I'm like, is Swiftie supposed to be Swiftie, like not IE but Y? Like, and God help me, my daughters would kill me. But anyway, also am obsessed with pink, and I love kickboxing. So that's just a little bit about me. So I wanted to start, we're talking about preparing for the postpartum period. So after baby arrives, and I like to be inclusive in that can be if you're a birthing parent or adopting, foster, anything like that. Okay, we tend to think about and plan for things for our baby that happen immediately, like that might happen during labor and like right after delivery. Okay, so we want a birth plan, we want a feeding plan, and is our hospital bag packed? What we don't think about is like, what are we going to do as the birthing parent for our own health and sanity? And a lot of times when we have a newborn or a new baby child in our house, like that all falls to the wayside. But it's really important to have a plan. So included in that plan, some things, thinking about like, what are you going to eat? How are you getting to your appointments? Let's say if you had, a traumatic birth or a section or tearing and you're like, I can't drive. Okay. How are you getting your emotional support? And then what we're going to talk about mostly today is how are you going to get your movement in, your physical movement in after baby? So I love talking about just getting back to the basics, right? So our bodies are completely different. Our bodies, our brains, everything are completely different after baby arrives. Okay, so the first thing is to listen to your body, and like first thing and a half is listening to your OB, your midwife, whomever you consulted with during pregnancy and during birth and after, right? Always. As a general rule, if you're starting to consider any type of movement other than the typical functional movement that you do day to day, picking up baby, holding baby, maybe going for short walks, is that if you have a vaginal delivery, your body is not prepared to move in any other way for at least 6 weeks. And 8 weeks if you birth baby via a section. And those first movements need to be very small and sustainable, meaning like, again, proper posture, how to pick up baby, how to go for short walks with baby, things like that. And when we talk about movement, we talk about being home with the baby. Yeah, it'd be great to like say, okay, well, I'm gonna kind of get like a short workout in or something while baby's sleeping. But you know what? It's also really cool to do this with baby. And I think that for me, that was really helpful with my mental health and in my healing, is that I didn't have to constantly think of ways to like, where's baby going to go if I want to go for a walk? Baby can come with me 100%. I can do this. And really important is to be aware of any contraindications with certain movements, especially when we're in that first at least year postpartum. And so when we prone versus supine, I know those seem like big words. Some people know them. Prone is when you're like in a plank position. Supine is when you're laying on your back. Squats, great exercise, especially really a great exercise to do when you are nearing labor. Opens everything up, kind of stretches things out. But once you're post labor, the deepness of squats, like you have to be really cognizant of that. Impact moves, things that we absolutely do not want to do with extra relaxin running through our bones. I'll explain a little bit more about that later. And then we're going to talk a little bit about diastasis recti. DR, I'll kind of abbreviate it as. And so anything including like, even if we don't really know we're doing it, but twisting, full plank sit-ups, like just, we're not doing that. We're not doing that to our bodies. Okay, yeah, what is DR? So we have this like really cool tissue that runs down from basically from our chest bones all the way down to our pubic bone. It's called our linea albia, and it's connective tissue, and it connects the rectus abdominis muscle. So those are like the six-pack muscles, if you have those. So what happens, and this is not unique to pregnant women, although it's mostly occurs in women that are pregnant, is that obviously baby's in there moving every organ around, moving things. And so that connective tissue is being pulled apart. And what's happening is all of the things, the muscles and everything that tissue was kind of holding together, they're like, oh, cool, like a way out. So they're kind of bulging, right? Not life threatening. Yes, reparable. So let's just like breathe for a second and like meet your pelvic floor. Okay. And then I'm not going to go into anatomy. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a physical therapist or anything like that. This is just my knowledge from one, having DR, having kids, and then the training that I've gone through. So that your pelvic floor is like a hammock, right? And if you've seen a pelvic floor physical therapist or otherwise, you totally recognize this, right? Your pelvic floor is holding all things in. It's holding in your bladder. It's holding, helping your rectum, all the pelvic floor muscles that allow you to do many bio things, as well as supports, other areas of that are definitely impacted by giving birth, and not just vaginally, but via a section. And like I said, men can experience, non-birthing people experience DR if they overexert working their abdominal muscles in an unhealthy way. So just so you know, it like I said, not unique to birthing parents, but 100%, like it's definitely seen more. So I can open this video. I'm afraid I'm so technologically not advanced that I'm just afraid, but I will be happy to share this in the chat, because DR is something that you can check for on yourself. You don't have to like diagnose yourself, nor should anyone diagnose you other than perhaps your OB, a midwife, or a physical therapist. But you can certainly get an idea of what level of separation you may have in that linea albia. I'm just going to post like, okay. And so the image here is showing just how you can sort of check yourself. The YouTube video is really great. Again, I'm gonna drop it in the chat after this, just so that if you want to check it out. And there are lots of great resources. There are also some really bad ones, so this is a good one. So if you're experiencing sort of like any of these symptoms, like after baby, like really bad low back pain, incontinence, and that can be urine or feces. If you're having any sort of incontinence in that area, that could be a sign of that you have DR. Mom pooch. So I don't necessarily love this term. It's not it's not a criticism of a birthing person that literally, just grew human life, but the organs, your uterus should be, shrinking and those kinds of things. If you're noticing it's things in this area are not, mom pooch could, again, it could be that linea albia is not healing itself. It's not coming back together. And another really interesting side effect is carpal tunnel. And there are like really a lot of studies that show that carpal tunnel, which is very common in postpartum, that there is a relation between carpal tunnel and diastasis recti. And it all has to do with, again, that increased relaxin, and also just the fact that our tissues and our joints are not as strong as they were. Okay, so when we talk about, oh my gosh, like, right, we gave birth or we have new baby at home, what just happened? These are just a few of the physical symptoms that I'm sure many of us have experienced, right? Low back pain, ankles, wrist pain, and weakness, sciatica, oh my gosh, right down the fanny, right? Difficulty sleeping, pelvic pain, incontinence, and of course, excuse me, weight gain. And obviously to be expected, but once you get to a certain point where it becomes uncomfortable, becomes impactful on your daily life, that's when it becomes a problem. Excuse me. So there are ways to alleviate, again, not, we're not talking cures here, but you can certainly alleviate a lot of these symptoms with movement. So one of the first things we like to talk about is posture, and we use the WASH acronym, and what that stands for is wrist, abs, shoulders, and hips. So at least for me, even though I had one summer baby, one bio summer baby, one bio like early fall baby, I like to get out as soon as I could with a stroller. And so this acronym speaks to that. So we talk about wrists, having neutral wrists here, and our abs are as much as we can engaged. Our shoulders are down and back and relaxed, and our hips come up close to that stroller. So if you think about WASH, you're thinking about walking with a stroller, perhaps even wearing baby, and really being cognizant of those areas that are really experiencing discomfort. So, again, the wrists, our abdominal area, our shoulders were like this, right? When we're feeding baby, and then our hips. So, sorry, I have like a total tickle in my throat. A few things to think about. I know when I went to get a massage post baby, my massage therapist was like, your left arm is like totally jacked. Yeah, because I held my baby in my left arm while doing everything with my right hand. So being cognizant of balancing baby and switching baby hip to hip so that we're not overexerting one side. We'll talk about strengthening your core. When people typically think about core, they're like, oh, like my abs, like I should have a six pack, that kind of thing. Nope. Your core is basically the front and back of your body, from your neck almost all the way down to your knees, including your glutes, so the back of your leg, and your quads, your hips, your hip flexors, your abdominal muscles, your low back, your upper back, so your deltoids, your lats, everything. So strengthening all of those areas is really important. And then being cognizant of repetitive movements. So recognizing how you reach into the crib to pick up baby. How are you lifting baby? What about when you're getting up and down off the floor? What about lumbar support while you're feeding? And that can be breast or bottle. having that support in that low back, because again, the typical way for us to be is like this, and that low back is arched and pulled away from any support. So adding some support to your low back while you're doing that, that helps with your posture and helps alleviate some of those symptoms of pain. One of my favorite exercises to do are scapula squeezes. So scapula right in between the shoulder blades. And these can be done anytime, right? We're just like pulling back and squeezing. And what always gets me is I'm just like, wow, I'm totally like this. If I just sit up and start doing some squeezing, all of a sudden I'm like, wow, it just feels so good. And then when you begin movement, and even before, so important to have really great support. So a really good sports bra or bra or nursing bra, as well as a really good pair of shoes. And I know here in upstate New York, and I'm sure other areas, we have a franchise called Fleet Feet. That's one place that they do bra fitting. But if you were to go somewhere and do a bra fit, really great idea. Same with shoes, just to see where you may need extra support in those areas, specifically if you're going to start doing any sort of movement. Okay, so when we talk about pelvic floor, when we talk about things that may hinder movement, like I don't ever want to do a jumping jack again because of all the things. So we all probably have heard of Kegels. I know that unfortunately, after my daughter was born, basically my OB was like, things look good, but you should probably do some Kegels. And that was like all I got. I'm like, okay. So yeah, Kegels are a start, but they're not the end all be all. And sometimes, to be honest, they're kind of annoying because you have to like think about doing them. There are more than this, but these are 4 kinds of Kegels. The basic Kegel, where you're standing, lying, or sitting, and you're just squeezing your pelvic floor. So it's like you're stopping the flow of urine, or perhaps even stopping a bowel movement. Yeah, so I did not make, I guess I didn't really make it up, but I feel like, I mean, if you feel like I should patent it, I might. The stoplight Kegel. So like when I would be driving in my minivan with my kids going places, that's when I would remember. So I'd be at a red light and I'd be like, oh, and I would do any one of these, the elevator, sustain, progressive, whatever. And I would hold my Kegel, do the exercise and then release it. Then once the light turned green, I would go. But that's just one way to kind of think about working on Kegels. Elevator Kegel, you literally think about an elevator coming from your vagina all the way up as far as it can go, relaxing and letting it go back down again. Sustain Kegel, just like I said, it's increasing the time that you contract the pelvic floor and holding it, hold it. That stoplight Kegel might help. And then progressive, increasing the strength. So like at first you might feel like, okay, I can only contract like very shortly. And, there still potentially could be some pain, especially if you tore. And so like you can increase the strength with which you hold the pelvic floor. So again, Kegels, great way to start sort of interacting with your pelvic floor and strengthening. All of this like contributes to mental and emotional benefits of movement, because I know for me, like when I kept peeing myself, I was just like, this is not like good for me. I've got to figure out what I can do, what kind of movement, but what's safe, but also I'm home with kids. And then there are a lot of studies, obviously, physical activity during your postpartum period is recommended and really helps with your maternal and your mental health, right? There's other benefits of returning and or starting, not going crazy, but starting movement after baby. Again, under the advisement of your OB, your midwife, like we feel less anxious, improved cardiovascular. I mean, all the organs that have been smushed and moved around, we can help alleviate some of the symptoms of some of those things that happen. I put the study on here because this is where all of these, I didn't just make them up, like less lactation induced bone loss, less urinary incontinence, lots of studies that show that. So I can always post that in the chat too, or share this after, share the whole presentation. I know we're sharing, so, or recording. So, look it up and see what would work. Okay, so especially when I was running Mamletta, big question is, okay, so how, I want to start moving. I want to strengthen my pelvic floor. I want to find my core again. I just want to move. I want to get out of the house. How do I do this with a baby? Remember earlier in the presentation, I talked about just getting back to basics. So when we talk about basics, we're talking about functional fitness, which includes things like, let's talk about like squatting, getting up and down off the toilet. When I start squatting and I'm strengthening the muscle groups, my quads, my hamstrings, my glutes, that allow me to safely and without hurting my knees, my low back, getting into that up and down position, all of a sudden I'm like, oh yeah, because that's how I get up and down off the toilet. That's how I get up and down off of a couch or a chair, or even off the ground when I'm down on the ground with baby. We talk about things like planking, which is something that we modify for a long time after baby because we don't want that pressure. A plank is when we're in that prone position, so our hands on the ground and our legs are out behind us. But those are things that we want to modify in order to not encourage diastasis recti. So again, that bulging, pushing up against that linea albia, and that kind of thing. The posture, those scapula squeezes that we talked about, right? Helping with posture, all of those things. All right, so like, what should I focus on then if I'm like new to this, or even if I want to get, if I was a mover, but I want to get back to it. Really fun things to do. Baby weighted squats and lunges, just like I talked about, right? We want to make sure that we limit the range of motion. And what that means is, again, that not going into that super deep squat or stepping way back into a lunge or stepping way forward or to the side in the lunge for at least 6 months post-baby. I touched upon relaxin, which is a hormone that runs rampant for good reasons in our body before we give birth, right? It basically softens our joints, which allows baby to pass through our pubic bone, our pelvic area, everything, and like our hips open up. With that, relaxin doesn't just like stop being so much right after baby comes, especially if you are breastfeeding. Relaxin will be running through your body for quite a long time and will continue to soften joints. And so it is imperative to keep movement to the low impact side of things. So instead of doing jumping jacks where you're jumping, you're stepping a foot out, right? And it's so low impact versus high. And again, shorter range of motion on things like squats and lunges. With baby, you can certainly start working in the core with those standing oblique lifts. So you have baby here and you're just going side to side. We're not twisting, but we're dropping that elbow. We're holding baby. Baby's a nice little extra weight side to side. A really fun one is to do a bridge with the baby. So you're on your back and you lift your hips up off the ground. And you have baby up here. Baby loves it. And then modified planks and push-ups over baby. So this is one of my best friends, Courtney. This is her little girl. I mean, this is from years ago. This is Cora, and she's like 7 now. But this is like a modified side plank over baby. You can do, a regular either elbow or forearm plank, but these are all ways to incorporate baby into movement every day. Another favorite of mine is walking and talking with friends, right? Get yourself outside. Also, if like you live in an area like I do in Ontario, malls really make a great walk and talk spot. So meet up with some girlfriends. So babes in a stroller, maybe grab a coffee or a water or a smoothie. walk and talk. Remember that WASH acronym for your posture. It's also common ground. Like, you can all be like, you will not believe the blowout that I dealt with this morning, or whatever. And you're moving your body, and you're also moving your mental health in the right direction. It's socialization for you and baby. It's amazing, even when they're tiny, like being around another tiny human, it's what they pick up on is so cool. And like I said, again, remember WASH, wrists, abs, shoulders, hips. So I just wanted to kind of like finish with this, because I didn't want any part of this presentation to be like, okay, your body wasn't enough before or during or after pregnancy. How dare you gain weight? How dare you this? And at the same time, recognizing how much our body changes and just what amazing things our bodies do. And always talking to ourselves in the mind frame, like, you are enough, like your body is awesome. And so spend some time like getting to know your new body, because it is a new body, right? Like, what has changed? Some things may have not changed, other things will. My mom told me that her feet grew like 2 sizes when she was pregnant with me. Weirdest thing. She's like, this is the weirdest thing ever. So if you go through and say something like, this is, my feet, it allows me to walk. It allows me to walk baby around and everything. And yeah, they're bigger, but they're still awesome. Or like whatever these, and you can definitely, if you're comfortable, and you don't have to like write this and put it on Facebook or anything, but include your reproductive parts. Like, these are my breasts. Holy cow, they're huge, but they are that way because I feed baby this way, or that's what the beautiful hormones that were incorporated into building this baby did, whatever. Go ahead and do that and write that out for yourself. I think it's like, yeah, it's really powerful. And it can be like short and simple, but also a way to like recognize, and also recognize your body, appreciate your body, but also recognize areas where you're like, okay, this is very different. I wonder if I could talk about this with my provider or whatever. And I think, did I? Oh, yes, that's it. I'm going to stop the share. Questions and comments, please come at me with anything. And then what I'll do is there's share anything in the chat if that would be, or email it out, the DR video, how to check yourself for diastasis recti. If it's not something you want to do for yourself, you can, like I said, your OB or your a midwife, or specifically a pelvic floor physical therapist should be able to do that. So that's it for me. If anybody has questions, I'm happy to take them. I think, just like you said, there's there should be no shame in recognizing that your body has changed and being like, okay, this is what it is now. There's also zero shame in being like, I'm mourning my body pre-baby because it functioned in this way and now it's not. And it's not black and white. It's not saying like your body could never go back to doing what it did before baby. For some people, that is the case. For other people, it's not. And so I think that the message is that there's no shame in feeling either way, being like, I really miss like my boobs being here because now they're here. There's no shame in any of that. And I think being able to like to openly discuss those feelings is so important. And also knowing that like your life pre-baby doesn't have to cease to exist with baby. You can, make it work for you, and there are definitely ways to do that. There's just zero shame in feeling either way, honestly. as a putting myself out there as a fitness instructor and everything post baby, and not looking like I did before I had baby, but I'm still teaching the same kinds of classes. I was always like super hard on myself because I'm like, okay, I have put myself on this pedestal of what I am supposed to look like and everything. However, I just had 2 babies in 2 years, and my body is like, girl, give me a second, you know? So it's hard. Yeah, it's hard. So yeah, so my new role with PSI is as in the Northeast, but we also have a regional manager on the West Coast, and we're covering obviously the whole country. So the climb is PSI's big awareness raising as well as fundraising event for perinatal mental health disorders. The climb is held 2 times a year. Between this year, the dates to run a climb are between June 15th and June 30th, or September 28th through October 13th. And they can be symbolic climbs, which mine in Syracuse is, meaning we're not like climbing a mountain, we're not running a 5K, where we do like a short symbolic walk. But the events and the activities that we hold that day are special and touching and moving, and bringing awareness to survivors, advocates, providers, and families of those who have journeyed with any sort of perinatal mental health disorder. They are held all over the country. If there's not one near you, you can lead one and we can help you. We have incredible training. All of our climb leaders are volunteers. Um, it's a wonderful way to create community for all of those, again, like I mentioned, not just survivors or those journeying, those that we have lost, family members, advocates, and volunteer providers. And so it's been amazing creating community via climbs across the country over the last 12 years, I think. Yeah, so if you go to PSI website, PSI, and then /climb, where you can just search on, ways to become involved, and even just to participate or join one near you, or show up, or share with your friends, share with family that there's a climb near you. It's a really wonderful event.